So, Suzanne, thanks for coming on. So,
Thanks for interviewing
can
me.
can you tell me a little bit about your book that's coming out?
Yes, my book is called The Art of Coming Home, and it's basically, I've wanted to write this book for over 10 years now, but it is like a distillation of all of my experience of working on self-development with people. Because I had quite a lot of information about self-development, as well as self-development exercises, and I just wanted to put it all in one place that people could use to do their own inner work at home, basically.
Okay, sure. So, the title of your book sounds quite interesting. So, does it have particular sort of significance to you? What does it mean something in particular?
It does. Um, to me, with self-development work, it's quite interesting because sometimes, if you grow up in a certain situation that doesn't always reflect your own personality, you'll get a whole bunch of behaviors and thoughts and beliefs, but they don't always reflect exactly who you are. And you'll also adapt yourself to fit in with a certain environment, which makes a lot of sense when you're younger. But when you're older and you're trying to live completely as you are, it can feel a little bit uncomfortable if you do new things, like if you push yourself to change behaviors and thoughts. But my philosophy is that if it's authentic to you, if it's genuine to you, then even if it feels uncomfortable, by pushing yourself out of your comfort zone in that way, you're actually coming home to yourself. So
Hmm.
that's why it's called The Art of Coming Home,
Sure.
in a nutshell.
I really like that concept that you are coming home in that way. You
Yeah,
said that this book has been 10 years in the making in a way.
yeah.
And so I guess why now? Why have you decided to put pen to paper now?
Well, I had the time to do it. That helped because I wrote my stretching book first. Um, I'm really glad I didn't write it 10 years ago. It would not have been as good 10 years ago, honestly. The experience that I've had with clients it's got a little bit deeper over the years. I've just learned so much from working with people.
Mm,
Almost every client brings a little bit of new information, and I've been able to create exercises and then test them with people and have people's feedback. And so I think it has been worth waiting for 10 years, although I have been writing the book off and on for 10 years, different versions of it, some of
yeah.
them quite crazy versions, but yeah, I'm happy it's got to this point that I've managed to. It's almost like my ability to write and my experience of what's put in the book has sort of intersected at this point.
Mm,
So,
sure, okay. Yeah. And I guess you said about creating exercises
mm,
for people,
yeah,
that you see yourself, and it sounds like there's quite a few a lot of material like that in in this book.
there's a
Can you
lot.
give me an example of a particular exercise that you
Yeah.
think you recommend a lot of people to do, that you
One of
think
my
would...
favorites, sorry to interrupt.
It's okay.
One of my favorites is a bit crazy. It's like sighing out really loudly. And as we both studied Chinese medicine, the theory is that a sigh is an attempt to relieve blocked energy. So
Mhm.
with my clients, even when I do body work or if I'm just talking to them, I'll get them to sigh out stuck energy. And I really like that because while you do it, you can also hear the emotion that is stuck, that's coming out. Because when you have an emotion, that it creates a pattern of tension in your body, almost as if you're tuning an instrument. And then the
Mm.
sigh that comes out from that state tells you the sound of that tells you what you're feeling as well. But the doing of it releases the pressure. So, like if you're stressed but you're not aware of it, you just,
Mm.
oh, my shoulders are tight. And then you open your mouth really wide and you're like, ah, like that. All of that pent up energy can come out. And it's a really healthy, easy way to do it. The only thing I'd recommend is I try and avoid making eye contact while I do it because emotions can be contagious.
Mm.
So sometimes when people unconsciously offload emotion, like when you're in the supermarket and you accidentally bump into someone and they sigh, like, oh, it has a negative effect on you. But when you do it consciously and intentionally and you just let the emotion out, And if people around you know why you're doing it, then it doesn't have a bad influence on anyone else. It just
Hmm.
lets that stuck energy out. So that's really good for people. And I do
Sure.
it all the
Sounds
time.
like something sounds like something that's very easy to do as well, and you can do from the comfort of your home.
Exactly. And I love easy, cheap, like free, preferably, things that you can do to just make yourself feel better right away.
Sure. And I guess just following on from that and thinking about the kind of people that might be particularly interested in your book, who do you think would benefit from using your book the most?
I think sometimes the people who are interested and the people who would benefit the most aren't always the same people. So I would love to help people who need to express their emotions more. Uh, the people who will actually buy my book are probably the people who are already interested in self-development or meditation or yoga already. But I would love to also have the people who just just want some common sense advice for working through their emotions.
Hmm.
Typically, I get two types of clients. Some are stuck in a rut, or they either feel like they're stuck in a rut or they're going through a process of change in themselves. So signs of that are like not feeling fulfilled by life or that something isn't quite right and something needs to change. And the
Mm.
other group of people I tend to get are people who are actually coming more with physical complaints or symptoms like anxiety and insomnia, and it's because they've got a stuck emotion or issue that they have to work through.
Hmm.
So you can use it either to work on an existing problem, or you can use it to move yourself more towards where you want to go as a person, to
Hmm.
express
Hmm.
all of who you are.
Mm.
That
Sure.
sounds a little general, but it's it looks very different in different people. So
Mm.
two people could have different personalities and use the same exercise, get the same type of benefit, and yet the result in their life would look very different.
Mm.
So
Sure.
one person might become a better dad and another person might become a better architect.
Mm. It sounds like your book is targeting people who are feeling particularly stuck in a way, and that can
Mm,
be in a that sounds like it can be to do with how their life is going at the moment. So
yeah,
maybe they have had to I don't know, they've had to break up from somebody with a long-term relationship, or perhaps they are grieving at the moment and
yeah.
they've been through loss. And then it sounds like the second group of people who you feel would benefit are the people who actually have complaints, medical and
Hmm.
health complaints as well.
Exactly.
So, okay.
And I don't
Hmm.
want to oversimplify that because obviously, if you have a pain or if you have a medical issue, it doesn't always have an emotion at its root. It's just I've noticed there's a correlation sometimes between people with tight necks, but they only have a tight neck when they go to work, never when they're on holiday. So, of course, then you have to narrow down, is it because they're at a desk or is there an emotional component? And there's often an emotional component. I mean, I remember I used to go to a job and I didn't like it very much, and I used to suffer from lower back pain anyway. One day I called in sick with my lower back pain, and literally the second I hung up, it wasn't there anymore. And that is a known thing that can happen, that if you are, if part of you is looking to divert uncomfortable emotions or give you an excuse not to do something, it can have very strong physiological effects. It doesn't mean that you're not having back pain. It just
Mm.
means that the solution might be different than you expect.
Sure. Okay. I guess, this day and age, there's a lot of self-help, self-development books that are out there. What do you think makes your book different to these other books which are available?
I think it's very eclectic, so that makes it harder to market in some ways because people are like, well, what is it? It's not just a book of visualizations. It's not solely about breathing exercises or movement. It's a combination of movement because I see the body as the person, sorry, is very whole, 360 degree. You've got mind, body, emotions, and spirit. So exercises themselves take different approaches. Some might be writing letters, some might be self-expression, some might be moving, some will
Mm.
be visualizations. So the variety, I think, makes it quite unique. The other thing that makes it unique is I don't have a background as a psychologist or a counselor. I came from, as you did, Chinese medicine, and then stretching people, and then doing energy work and studying a little bit of shamanism. So I have a very eclectic background, and I take these different approaches to try and give some people something new that they haven't experienced before.
Mm.
Because
Mhm.
I think counselling is amazing, um, and I don't see my book as being an alternative, but more of a complement to things that people do already. So if you're having counselling, you could still try some of the techniques in the book.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, so that it's quite different because it's not from a very streamlined approach. This is this one thing. It's basically a hodgepodge of all the things, a lot of which I've made up that tend to work for people, that
Hmm.
have worked for my
Yeah.
clients.
Mm. Okay, sure. I mean, some people feel like self-development work is a bit sort of navel gazing, it's a bit self-indulgent. What do you think about that view?
I completely understand why people say that. I mean, we come from a very rational, intellectual society, and a lot of people just think, oh, just get on with it. Fine, life's hard, it doesn't matter.
Mm.
Just get on with what you're doing, work harder. But some of the values that we've been brought up with, I think, don't always lead us to feeling completely expressed as people. So there are a lot of judgments we make in society. This is important, that isn't important. And things like self-care can seem trivial or silly. But if you look at the real life effect of doing self-development, it just has huge, huge benefits on the culture, whether that's a culture at home or a culture at work. So if you want to have a boss who's a really good leader and they're processing their emotions and they're taking responsibility for their emotions, it's a whole different experience from having a leader who's reactive, still triggered by childhood issues, acting out a lot more than they know they are, creating an environment at work that's not pleasant to work in. So self-development can seem navel-gazing because you do have to look at yourself. But if you do it in a balanced way, it's like the most responsible thing that you'll ever do because it
Mm.
means you're taking care of yourself and you are the person who's meant to take care of yourself.
Mm.
And it means that you're being responsible for yourself in the way that you affect other people.
Mm.
So it's actually quite hard work. It can be quite hard at times. It doesn't have to be hard all the time. But the way to make it more balanced and not just selfish is that when you do a little bit of work on yourself, but then you try and ensure that those benefits reach the wider community. So you're
Mm.
not just living for yourself, or you're not just doing the work for yourself.
Mm.
And that will look different in different people. It's really important that you don't take that as, well, I'm going to go and preach and tell everyone how they should live. It's not like that at all. It's more like you do your self-development work so that you're a better leader, and then you go and be a better leader and have a great impact on other people.
Mm. Okay, so
Yeah,
it comes across almost quite like it teaches you what you need to know, but then you can implement it pretty
exactly.
much straight away, quite
Yeah,
practical.
practical, yeah. The advice in the book is very practical because I don't like wasting time. So it's basically, here's the information you need, and here's the way that I've seen people work through it in the most effective way. It might
Yeah.
not always be as fast as you want, but
Mm.
it's quite direct.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess with that in mind, do you have anything in mind with regards to after you release your book in terms of how you can continue to support people who do
Mm.
want to take things a bit further? I mean, you talked about doing certain exercises, with people around you. You talked about doing it in isolation. Is there room to offer almost classes of a few people who are interested in doing the exercises
Yeah.
together? And you, I guess, kind of facilitating that group in a way.
Yeah, that's definitely something I'd be open to. At the moment, I'm doing Skype sessions one to one with people,
Mm.
and I'm also in the process of writing another book, and I'm also doing an online, like trying to create an online course that walks people through the process of self-development in a very easy to
Sure.
manage way, which is quite fun. And
Yeah.
I'm sort of offering all of that, and there might be more things like group classes in the future as well.
Mm.
But I would encourage people to do the self-development that they're drawn to, and after reading the book, they might just really feel like I need to do salsa, or I need to do
Mm.
like painting classes, or self-development can look very different. And I think
Mm.
the main message in the book is that you're your own expert in terms of you can find the answers within,
Yeah.
and sometimes the things that you need won't seem to make much sense, but if you try them, if you feel drawn to them and then you try them, then you'll find out why you needed to do it.
Sure. So lots of exciting things in the pipeline then.
Yeah, I've got too many ideas, to be honest. I can't make all of them. It's very frustrating. I have to stick with one until it's done.
I guess when it comes to your book, is there a main chapter or a main message
Mm.
that you want people to take away from reading your book?
It's hard. That question is almost like, do you have a favorite child, in a way, because I feel like all the chapters are really important. For a lot of my clients, learning to work through emotions and name emotions is absolutely huge, because that dialogue it's basically the foundation for all self-development work. You have to know what you're feeling. And that can be hard for a lot of us because it's not a dialogue we're brought up with,
Mm.
or a vocabulary we're brought up with. And I just had quite a fun conversation with a man a friend, but he's also a man. Not but, a friend who's also a man. And we were talking about men and expressing emotions and how it can be hard to begin that work because guys,
Mhm.
especially, are not encouraged to feel emotions. But as a society, there's certain emotions that we're not encouraged to feel. So beginning to have a dialogue with those parts of ourselves is huge. But
Mm.
actually, the acceptance chapter is enormous, because acceptance might sound passive, but it's some of the hardest work you'll ever do. Like, if you feel like you've been wronged, accepting the situation fully is what actually gives you the freedom to move on from it.
Mm.
Accepting who you are fully for yourself and your body and your quirks and your strengths and your weaknesses, accepting all of that, that's very empowering work. So I'd say that's probably one of the most important chapters.
Mm. Okay, sure. When it comes to self-development, what would you say is your philosophy when it comes to that kind of work?
Um, I'd say with self-development, the most important thing that you want to bear in mind is that while you can have teachers for certain things, and that's not a problem, you are the expert on yourself. And no one's ever going to be able to tell you more than you know inside. So all of my tools are designed to help you get to the answers that you already have and access the resources that you already have. Resources such as compassion, creativity, intuition, kindness, strength, personal power. All of these are resources that I see everyone has. Not everyone has practiced accessing them or has the confidence in accessing them. And sometimes when you're low on confidence or you feel like you don't know a lot about yourself, you can attach yourself to a teacher or a system because you want someone to give you the answers.
Mm.
If you get a good teacher or a system, they'll know when to let you go and how to help support you in accessing your own answers. But sometimes, or quite often, people, when they're in that state of openness or vulnerability, attach themselves to teachers or systems that don't support them in finding their own answers, and they
Mm.
end up in a bit of a stuck relationship with a philosophy or something that's not really serving them.
Mm.
And you can generally tell because those people don't move ahead in their lives. So that's something that
Mm.
I'm quite passionate about, is you have to empower the person.
Mm.
And I'm not really worried about ending up as one of those sorts of teachers because I'm such an introvert that it's usually harder to get to find me. Like, I would be a hard person to be a follower of. You'd have to find me first. But
It
you,
sounds like your approach is much more almost from the inside out as
yeah.
opposed to, and bottom up as opposed to top down.
Yeah,
So,
you can definitely do things from the outside as long as you have the introspection to get to the teaching from it. So if
mm,
you want to be more confident and you go to salsa, that's great as long as you also learn how to be internally more confident as well,
mm,
but not
mm,
to rely too much. But also, you have to integrate your self-development by doing real life things as well.
yeah.
But it is more about introspection and learning about yourself than about more physical things, like that if you stopped, you would lose that quality. I prefer people to learn about how to access that quality within themselves without relying on anything external if possible.
Mm, yeah, sure.
Sounds a bit abstract, doesn't it? But
It did just then. So, but I think I get where you're coming from.
yeah, I could probably give you a more concrete example. Let's say someone feels more confident when they're exercising, but then they hurt themselves.
Mm,
So then they can't feel more confident. Exercising in itself is great, and confidence is also great. But if you can just access your own confidence without having to do something,
mm,
then you'll be more self-reliant. And I suppose a lot of my book is about accessing your internal resources so that you can just depend on yourself and be
mm,
self-reliant. Which doesn't mean that you shouldn't lean on people sometimes, but you won't need a certain external thing to, it's like you don't have to take a circuitous route to something inside yourself. You can just go straight there,
mm-hmm. Yeah,
if that
yeah,
makes sense.
yeah, yeah. That does make more sense.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe one final question. When you wrote the book,
Yeah.
and I suppose given that it was almost like 10 years in the making, and it sounded like it was quite soon after you wrote your first book as well
Mm.
on moving stretch.
Yeah.
With this particular book, what would you say surprised you the most when you were writing it?
I This book, this is going to sound a bit woo-woo, potentially, but the Moving Stretch book, I wrote in 5 months, and it was quite hard work, just logistically organizing all the models for the book and everything, and doing the photo shoots and all of that, and doing the research, because some of those fascia articles are quite, I don't know, a bit cleverer than me, and I had to struggle through them and figure out what they meant so that I could figure out what I thought and what I thought people needed to know. So there was a lot of synthesizing. I don't know if that's the word, processing information and stuff. But it was fairly straightforward. This book has had a mind of its own from day one, and in a way I felt like it hasn't really allowed me to finish any of the chapters until I work through my own stuff within that chapter to a certain extent. So it's like I'm not the most self-developed person in the world or the wisest person in the world, but the book was not letting me get away with anything at the same time.
Mm,
So apart from trying all the exercises, I felt like I physically couldn't finish the chapter until I had understood it and what it meant for myself.
yeah.
Even up until like the last, I mean, the book still might have more lessons for me. I don't know, it hasn't been printed yet, but it feels like it's almost got a mind of its own.
Yeah. And also that you almost created the book and it sort of helped to feed back to you.
Yes. So
So,
it's funny because it's kind of like from my experience, but I don't know where inspiration comes from. Wherever it comes from, the book came from there as well. So it's like a
mm,
combination of something coming from somewhere and
yeah.
me combining that with my experience
Yeah.
and looking at studies and researching and
Mm,
considering what I thought about things. So yeah, it was a whole mixture of things, but yeah, the book has it sounds odd, but it feels like it's quite strong-minded.
Sure, okay. It's almost like self-development exercise in itself with creating the book.
Huge. It's been huge.
Great. Well, thank you very, very much for your time.
Thanks for interviewing me. That was great. Thanks, Lily.